All right, my friends, we have a special holiday coming up on Monday. And because of this holiday and us celebrating it, we won't be at school. You get the day off. Does anyone know what this special holiday might be? It's not Mardi Gras, it's not Valentine's Day, it's another special holiday. Anybody? This holiday is called Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Martin Luther King Jr. was a special man that's part of our American history. And we have this day to celebrate him and almost to say, like, thank you for what you've done for our country. So we're going to learn a little bit more about him today and then have a few activities for us to do to honor Martin Luther King Jr. and to celebrate him. So I want to show you a video, a Brain Pop Jr. video about his life and about what he did and the reason why we celebrate him. And then I'll show you guys the activity that we're going to do. All right, here we go.
Check it out. There's a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration on Monday. What was life like when Martin Luther King Jr. was growing up? Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. When he was growing up, some white neighbors wouldn't let their kids play with him because he was black. Then, people of different races and cultures were not always treated equally. People were often mistreated just because of the color of their skin. African Americans and people of other races were not allowed to go to the same schools as white students. Segregation is the separation of people based on their race, culture, religion, or other reason. There were segregated businesses and even segregated water fountains. But Martin Luther King Jr. worked hard and overcame many challenges. He skipped 2 grades in high school and went to college. Then he went to graduate school to study religion and received his doctorate. That's why we call him Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. After, he became a reverend, or a leader of a church. He began organizing the community to protest segregation and fight for equal rights for people of all races. What did Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. do? In many parts of the country, whites and people of other races had to sit on different parts of the bus. On December 1st, 1955, a woman named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white person. She was arrested and sent to jail. Dr. King helped organize the Montgomery bus boycott to protest segregation on buses. Thousands of people refused to ride the bus for over a year. Finally, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on buses was against the Constitution. After, Dr. King and other church leaders came together to form the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Together, they decided to fight for equal rights in peaceful, nonviolent ways. Dr. King led more boycotts of businesses that practiced segregation or treated African Americans unfairly. He also helped organize sit-ins. A sit-in is a kind of protest where people sit and refuse to move or leave. People sat peacefully in segregated restaurants in protest. Even when the protesters were mistreated, they refused to leave. Although segregation was against the law in many places, it still happened. Dr. King helped organize protesters, who rode buses to make sure segregation was not being practiced. They were called Freedom Riders. Dr. King helped organize peaceful marches around the country. Marchers asked for equal rights and fair treatment of people of all races and cultures. Sometimes they were mistreated, but they stood up for what they believed in. What did Dr. King do in Washington, D.C.? In 1963, Dr. King helped organize the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Hundreds of thousands of people of different cultures came together. There, he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. He said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Even though Dr. King protested peacefully, he was arrested many times. Some people disagreed with him, and they tried to scare him away or hurt him. But he didn't let anything stop him. In 1964, Dr. King won the Nobel Peace Prize, an important award given to people who work for peace and equality. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was in Memphis, Tennessee, to support African American sanitation workers who were protesting unfair treatment and pay. Dr. King was staying at a hotel and was standing outside his room. There, he was shot and killed. A man named James Earl Ray was arrested for assassinating Dr. King. Thousands of people walked in the streets to honor an important leader of the civil rights movement. Today, many people are still treated unfairly, and the fight for equal rights continues. We celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day to remember his life and to learn about his beliefs.
All right, so that is all about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I want you to think about what we just watched. That was a lot of information. And Miss Landry, if you could pause the video and have them share for a few minutes about something they noticed from the video. All right, guys, thank you for sharing with us. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King is so special because he believed that it didn't matter what color your skin was, that everybody is important on the inside. And that's what Jesus thinks about us too, that we're all special. It doesn't matter what color hair we have, what color our face is, what color our eyes are, what kind of clothes you wear. He still loves us and still thinks that we're special. And we should think the same thing about other people. It doesn't matter what color their skin is. We should still love them and treat them with fairness and with kindness. And that's what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was all about. Okay, I have something I want to show you guys. It is a little book that we're going to be creating, and it's all about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life. So let me show it to you. Move my stuff around so you can see it really good. Here we go. Martin Luther King Jr. And it says, "I have a dream." And if you heard in the video, that was the special speech. A speech is just when you're talking to a big group of people. That was the speech he gave to this big crowd. He said, "I have a dream that one day that my little children, they won't be judged or looked at based on the color of their skin, but based on how they believe in their heart and how kind they are to other people." So that was what he wanted other people to believe too, is that we shouldn't look at each other and say, "Oh, I don't like you because you have a different color skin," or "Oh, you can't play with me because your skin's a different color." But you should love people based on how they are on the inside. Okay, so let's get started with our book. This is information about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. So this is just a picture of the state of Georgia, which is pretty close to Louisiana, not too far. Thumbs up if you've ever been to Georgia or even to Atlanta. So this shows where he lived at, so you can color that picture. He became a preacher just like his dad and married Coretta Scott in 1953. So a preacher is kind of like a priest, someone that is ahead of the church, over the church, and they give the homilies and they encourage people in the church. So that was his job. He was a preacher at a church. And then this is his wife, Coretta Scott. So when you color them, remember what color their skin was. What color was it? It was kind of like a brown color, like a dark brown, so you can color their skin that color. Let's see what's next. In these years, some laws treated people differently because of their skin color. So this is a school, and this sign says whites only. So that means only if your skin was white or light colored like mine is, you could, only those friends could go to this school. If you had dark skin, you couldn't go to this school. You had to go to a different school. Does that seem fair? No, absolutely not. It makes me so sad that it was like that. Thankfully, it's changed though, right? Okay, let's see what it says here. Martin made important speeches and marches, and the people listened to him. So these are some of the things that he would talk about in his speeches. I have a dream, like we just talked about. Equality, and in that word equality, you see the word equal. And we know equal from when we were comparing numbers, when we said like, if I have 4 apples and 4 bananas, those numbers are equal, they're the same. So he wanted everybody to be treated the same, just like those numbers are the same, he wanted people to be treated the same. So if I was gonna be nice to this friend that has light skin, I should also be nice to this friend that has dark skin. And then this word right here is freedom. Freedom means like when you're able to do something that everybody else is allowed to do too. So people like riding the buses, they didn't let people with dark skin ride on certain buses or certain parts of the bus. So freedom means that they could go to different places and do different things just like everybody else could. And then justice is the last word that he would talk about in his speeches. Soon laws were changed to treat people equally, and this made Martin happy. So these are friends, and this is how I want you to color this page. I want you to color some friends with light skin, some friends with dark skin, all different color skin can play together, right? Do you guys have friends that have different colored skin than you? Maybe darker skin or lighter skin than you? Yeah, we do. And so that's what Martin Luther King Jr. wanted, was friends to play together that have different colored skin. All right, let's keep going. Now we celebrate him every year in January. Thank you, Martin Luther King Jr. So these are 2 kids at school, and what kind of book are they reading? They're reading a book about Martin Luther King Jr., just like you guys have a book about him, right? Very cool. Okay, that's the end of our book. So that's what you're getting ready to work on now. I also want to show you a couple of other things. I don't know if you'll be able to get to them today, but if you don't, Miss Chauvin will do them with you next week. So this is another sheet about Martin Luther King Jr. It says, I can make the world peaceful by, and in this little bubble, this is like him dreaming. You see it's coming out of his brain. He's like dreaming. I want you to dream about how you can make the world peaceful, make the world a happier place where people get along and people are kind to each other. And I want you to draw that in this little thinking bubble, how you can make the world more peaceful. And then the last thing I have about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is just this little color sheet. It says, Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And then it says, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is celebrated on the 3rd Monday in January every year. So we'll celebrate it next Monday, but we won't be at school. That's why we're doing it today. You'll put your name here, and then you can just color it. And they have these 2 little birds here. Does anyone know what kind of birds these are? These are called doves, and doves signify peace. And that is what Martin Luther King Jr. was all about, was he wanted peace in our world. He wanted kindness and everyone to love each other. Okay, so those are the activities that I have for you for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Like I said, you might not have time to get to all of it today, and that's okay. Whatever you don't get to today, you'll be able to do next week with Miss Chauvin. I hope you guys enjoy learning about Martin Luther King Jr., and you can go home and tell your parents or someone in your family about what you learned today. All right, I will see you guys later.